you can't park without coming across a meter.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, they have those
block
also.
or 2 blocks from the beach.
Right.
You know,
That's a little ridiculous.
They're all full. Everything's
All full.
just crazy, man.
But that must be a problem here, though. In the summer, where do people really, you know, where do they park? Because, you know, everyone's got a car today. It's not like...
Yeah, but they do have parking garages and stuff like that. Just cost you 5 or 10, or depending on the time of the year, $20
Yeah.
all day parking.
Yeah, that would be in New York. That would be like 3 or 4 hours.
1 hour.
1 hour. Depends on which
Depends where you are. If
Depends
you're
where you are.
uptown, it's
Right.
like $18.99 or something for an hour.
For an hour?
I mean, when I was, my
Wow.
father was in one of the hospitals up there, like East 80-something Street up there, and
Yeah.
paying for parking.
You mean you were going to the hospital visit and they're charging you that much for...
He was going through cancer treatments there,
Yeah.
and we were paying, you know, every day, every night going.
Right,
It's like
right.
the amount of money I spent on
Yeah,
parking up there.
that's another thing that's a big... There's so many scams and it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
For many, many years, I have resisted to the extent that these days, I'm almost pathological about it. Parking and paying for parking.
Yeah.
Paying for anything that.
Well, when you go,
I don't
especially at
feel
the
that we
hospital.
should be.
Yeah, especially at the hospital.
Well,
something.
especially, yeah.
Right,
Yeah, it should be free parking. You're visiting your loved one who's sick.
Yeah.
right,
I mean, they do that in Long Island. They have parking lots, and if they're full,
Yeah.
then you go into the other ones,
right, right.
municipal ones, but not in the city.
But just to show you the kind of fraud that goes on, it is bad. You know,
It's
guy,
not fraud, it's just, it's money, it's greed.
well, okay, right.
How
well,
can we make more money? How can we grab in more money? Oh, we'll charge
Well-
people to park.
Right, but
On
it
a,
has,
on a situation where they're forced to
Yeah.
come here.
Well,
Because
yeah,
they're either coming in
exactly.
for treatment,
right.
or they're coming to visit relatives who are in for treatment.
But that's what the thing is. They're not here to get cured, they get treatment. See, that's another thing people don't say about it. You remember a guy named Jerry Lewis, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. He used to do telethons in the fall, right? And he was passionate about it. He raised like $1 billion. He raised a lot of money
Yeah.
for that. Well, he happens to be a fellow I know. I met him. And he's like 82, but people think he's in his 50s. Because he helps people worldwide. And he knew about the cure, he proved it and so on. And he happened to know Jerry, right? So he was going to, he said, wait a minute, let me call Jerry up, you know. And he was ecstatic. I mean, because for years, you know, we don't know exactly why he did it, but he must have known someone or something.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes down there with a literal cure for muscular, because my one cousin passed, he had muscular dystrophy. And you know what they told him? You know what they told Jerry when he went in? I mean, he's been making all this money for him for years, right? You're fired. And by the way, you're not doing a telethon this fall, you're going to be in a cruise, literally. Because there was some clause in his contract and so on. Because they didn't want to have a cure because they want to continue because of the monies that come in from
House
that.
business.
The big business, right. So bottom line is, and he was heartbroken when he died, you know, and knowing that he had the answer from someone, Joel Wallach,
Yeah.
and Dr. Wallach, and couldn't, you know.
Okay.
All problems that people have, there's an answer. That's what I'm telling you. Someone has an answer. And I have someone on the West Coast, and this guy's got an IQ over 180. He's on par, at least, with Einstein or beyond. And he only uses naturals. He's a medical doctor who just does natural type things. So, but anyway, it's like, and he says if he doesn't have it, but he probably does, he will find the answer for you, or whatever problems might people have. So, like Steve Jobs, he had some bad advice, but you know, he was meant to go, I guess.
They all have it. They all, if they listen to doctors,
Well,
they've got bad advice.
how long does the average doctor last? You know how long he lasts?
Dead doctors
Yeah.
don't lie.
Right.
There's my sister-in-law's an herbalist, and she cures cancer on a regular basis. She lives in Canada.
Right.
The local doctors in her area send her their terminal relatives.
I have
So-
a friend whose dad's going through something. Do you want to share that information with me?
Sure.
Yeah, her father's.
I'll give you your phone number. We're on recording right now. Remind me later. I'll give you her phone number. You have to leave a message, and she'll call you back.
Okay.
Anyways, she cures. She's amazing, quite frankly. One of her first patients, she took an herbalist class, or a correspondence herbalist class. She's an accountant by trade.
Okay.
Revenue Canada wanted her to come and work for them because she's really, really smart. And she said, no way, I'm not working for you people.
Right.
And so, anyways, she's really smart, and so she took this correspondence herbalist class. She noticed the neighbor was working in the garden with her hands in the soil like this and her head up like this. And she said, what's wrong with you? And the neighbor says, I don't know. The doctors don't know what to do with it. If I put my head down, it'll feel like it's going to explode. And she says, it's been like that for 20 years. And she says, let me look in your ears. And she says, my God, you got worms in there. And gave her a parasite formula. A week later, the lady's working in the garden normally like everybody else is.
They didn't know that. They couldn't recognize.
It's just one story after another. Herbalists a lot of times they'll have an office in the back of a health food store, right? Because they're going to prescribe, the health food store will give them some space.
Right.
Because they're going to prescribe herbs.
Right.
And people will buy the herbs from the health food store. Anyway, so she was in this, on her lunch break, in this mall in Canada, and there was a guy there on a day trip from a mental hospital. And she said, what's wrong with you? And he says, I don't know, I can't remember anything. And so she says, well, come down and I'll check you out. And so he comes down, she checks him over, she does a live blood analysis. She'll show your blood under the microscope, and then she'll tell you what's wrong.
Okay.
And she says, well, your brain is swollen. She says, if you take these herbs, it's making you psychotic, which is why they're giving you these drugs for being psychotic. She says, if you take these herbs and gradually wean yourself off the drugs for being psychotic, you should be fine. 3 months later, this guy comes driving up in a limo. He's a multi-millionaire, has a corporate jet, flies all over the world buying and selling real estate. He was in the city in Canada, got mugged, got hit in the head, lost his memory, was living on the street. They didn't know what to do with him, so they put him in a mental hospital.
Oh.
And so 3 months later he comes driving up, and he's in a limo, and so he wants to give her $1,000, and she says, well, she says, if you want to pay me, it was $50 for the office visit, and so. You know, I don't know what he ever paid her, if she did, but so much for the herbs, I don't know what that was.
100,000.
but anyways, that was it.
Right.
And another time, you ever heard of a snowbird?
Yeah.
There was a snowbird in Phoenix. Okay, that's somebody from Canada in Phoenix for the winter, right? Had chest pains. He goes to see a cardiac surgeon in Phoenix. Cardiac surgeon, well, you got some blockages here. You need a triple bypass.
Right.
He says, that's okay, I'm from Canada. I'll go back to Canada and get it done for nothing. Next year, same cardiac surgeon is seeing the same snowbird, and he says, boy, you were here last year and you needed a triple bypass, and you don't need it now, and you don't have the scars from the surgery, so what did you do?
Strauss hot drops. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I went to see this herbalist. And then it turns out the cardiac surgeon needs a triple bypass. And so he goes to see her. She does the live blood analysis, checks them all. Well, you got some blockages. Take these herbs and come back and see me in 6 weeks. And I can tell you what the herbs were. It's hawthorn. Anyways, she says, take these herbs, come back and see me in 6 weeks. And he does. She checks him over. She says, okay, you're fine. You can go now. He doesn't believe it, checks himself, gets a friend to check him. 3 months later, she gets a phone call. He had just walked out of surgery, because he's the guy that does the triple bypass.
Right.
And he just walked out of surgery because he couldn't cut into somebody, knowing it wasn't going to do him any good. And she said that he talked to her for about 15 minutes and decided to go back to school to become an herbalist.
Let me tell you something. I have to tell you something because it has to do with Canada. It has to do with... There's a fellow by the name of Strauss who was told years ago, I don't know, it was 75 or 100 years ago, you have to have this bypass, you have to have this, that, and the other thing. I'm not going to do it, well, you're going to be dead. Well, he was an herbalist, and he put together Strauss heart drops, which is from Canada, I think, okay? and because it clears arteries and it basically strengthens the heart.
It's probably got hawthorn in it.
It's got hawthorn in it as well as cayenne.
Cayenne.
Yeah, it's got several things. If I
Yeah,
can
right. I take cayenne every day.
Okay.
And I take hawthorn every day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I got to get something to my mother because she went to the doctor yesterday and she takes blood pressure medicine, which I'm trying to get up on. My sister's a nurse, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, any kind of drug is not.
I know that, so I got to call your sister up and ask her.
I can give you the phone number after
Right.
when we're not on camera.
Right.
But
Okay.
you got to, when you do call her, she's had to shut her store down because of the communists in the government have passed statutes saying that only doctors can prescribe herbs. And so, but she does have the phone is still active, and you can call and leave a message, and she'll return your call. She doesn't just answer because she doesn't know who's calling.
Right.
And so, call and leave a message, and she'll
Okay.
return your call.
Okay.
And
If you want another one that clears out the arteries, it's serapeptase.
Serapeptase? Yes, I've heard about serapeptase.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a fellow from England. What was his name? He talked about that, serapeptase.
Yeah, they have different
Right.
strengths, but that,
Right.
that'll clean out. Clears your sinuses as well, believe it or not.
That would help. So that would help my mother with her.
she has done some. There was a girl that came to her with her hair falling out, and the doctors were giving her all these iron supplements, and she can see something that's causing something else that's causing something else in this blood analysis. That's why I say she's got a gift, because the doctors, they just treat the symptoms. So
Right.
this girl, this 18-year-old girl, her hair was falling out, and the doctors were giving her a massive dose of iron, and her hair was falling out because she had an iron deficiency.
Right.
But when my sister-in-law did the blood analysis, she said, well, you got this problem that's making it so your body can't assimilate iron. And so she gave her something to treat the problem that was making it so her body couldn't assimilate the iron, and that's when her hair started growing back. I mean, it's so many stories like that.
Right.
Gee, I had sciatica. You know what sciatica
Yeah, my mother's
is?
got that issue too.
Yeah.
So I first got that when I was carrying you.
I don't have it anymore. I had to leave my job when I was working at Atlas Airlines in
Right.
New York. I had to leave because I couldn't sit down.
Okay.
And I went to see her.
Yeah.
She gave me this homemade comfrey salve. I put it on my back for about a day and night for a couple of weeks.
Right.
And I've never had a problem with it since. And
Okay.
I was in a car accident when I was 8 years old. And ever since then, I've been going to a chiropractor 2 to 3 times a year all my life. And when that happened, when she gave me that comfrey salve, anytime I get a little kink in my neck or anything, I just put a little bit of that comfrey salve on there. I haven't been to a chiropractor since 2014.
It's amazing.
And again, I think it's because it's homemade comfrey salve. And she keeps it under the counter because it's not dead.
Right.
They have to cook it at low temperature for about a week.
Mm-hmm.
My brother's the one that makes it. And but it's her recipe.
Okay.
And my brother makes it, and it's all stuff that they grow on their farm.
Oh, you got a farm too?
Yeah, yeah, small one.
Right.
But anyways, so it's amazing. She's got a gift, and
Wow.
so she does amazing stuff.
And she's an accountant on top of that?
Well, yeah. Yeah. So,
Wow.
anyways,
Holy mackerel.
so let's get moving on this, anyways.
Okay.
So this one is called Without Prejudice. First of all, I'm not a liar. Well, I meant a lawyer. You should never. It didn't change over there, did it?
You have 2 of them?
Okay. There we go.
Okay.
First of all, I'm not a liar. Well, I meant a lawyer. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I provided references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything, and I'm open to any ideas. There's 4 types of people you'll meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? And have you ever thought about what a slave is? A slave is someone who is forced to work for nothing. And if you're getting Federal Reserve notes for pay, well, that means it's for nothing. Number one. And number two, if you're paying taxes, then that's for nothing too. You're paying taxes.
Right.
You're forced to do it. So then that portion of your money, your fake money that you're paying in taxes, you're working for it for nothing. So that's still slavery. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why it's slavery. Anyways, if you can see through the illusion, then you are the solution. If people do not know their basic rights and freedoms, how can they know when or if their rights and freedoms are being infringed? Never forget the men who started this country were marijuana-growing, whiskey-drinking, tax-evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at the cops. And really, that's exactly the case. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex. I don't trust the military industrial complex. I don't trust the mainstream media. I don't trust the bankster criminal cabal that owns the government, owns the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex, owns the military industrial complex, and owns the mainstream media. If you call me a conspiracy theorist, I don't trust you. Government is not reason, it's not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. So this is UCC 1-308. UCC is controlled and governed by Unidroit. And if you go on the Unidroit website, you'll find out that it's private international law. Okay, so anytime you're dealing with this, you're in international law. And what happens is, the Unidroit is over about 100 yards from the Holy See in Rome, and anytime they make a change, those changes automatically filter down into all of the, there's 60 countries that use the Uniform Commercial Code. And just all the changes just automatically filter down. So this is UCC 1-308. A party with explicit reservation of rights performs or promises performance or assents to performance in a manner demanded or offered by the other party does not thereby prejudice the rights reserved. Such words as without prejudice or under protest or the like are sufficient. So I always use without prejudice. You can use without prejudice or under protest or all rights reserved. I like without prejudice. Under protest, I'm not sure if all rights reserved would be as good. A lot of people use that. The point is that when you put that on your signature, that there's no signature. It takes it off the page. This is National Mutual Insurance Company, the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between the citizens of the district and those of the states are not included in the catalog of controversies over which the Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power nationally covers those citizens even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. And then there's the international law rule. This is taken from Jurisdiction over Federal Areas Within the States, report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction over Federal Areas Within the States, Part 2, a text of the Law of Legislative Jurisdiction submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President in June 1957, and it's pages 158 through 165. So it's extracts from those pages. Anyways, international law rule is adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction, federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only statutory, but the common law of a state. state and federal venue, discuss the civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction or federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state law. So, like in New Jersey's case, Nelson was just showing it to us. They're calling it the state of New Jersey, okay? That's a territory. And then New Jersey State is the de jure republic that joined the Union. So there's two separate entities. If you're in the state of New Jersey, then...
Facto.
Sorry?
De facto.
That's right. That's right. And it's the same in Texas too, by the way. Matter of fact, in Texas, it's called the state of Texas. If you look in the Texas Constitution, but yet there's a LLC that I bring up all the time called Deer Park Cash Cow. That is a limited liability company that has the assumed name of State of Texas. And so it's Deer Park Cash Cow that owns that. And so that's the reason I won't pay them anything. It's a scam. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was going to get because I have actually a certified copy of a land patent in Arizona where it's the Bureau of Land Management certifies the copy, but it says Bureau of Land Management, Arizona State. Okay, so that's the de jure entity. So New Jersey State exists. Okay, it's an entity that exists.
Right.
That's the people. You see what I'm saying?
One of the original colonies. Right?
Of course it is.
That jurisdiction, where it mentioned that the federal expands
Right.
to all the states.
Right.
Well, if you remember, Lindsey Graham, when we were doing the confirmation for Kavanaugh,
Yeah.
he mentioned specifically about if somebody in Afghanistan, were they still covered under the jurisdiction?
Yeah, and they are.
Kavanaugh said yes.
That's right.
So it's worldwide. It spreads
Excellent
out.
point.
If you're a U.S. citizen, doesn't matter where you are.
That's right. That's right. Excellent point. This is again UCC 1-308. It says subsection A. Oh, yeah, subsection A does not apply to an accord and satisfaction. And so if you put without prejudice, I'm not sure what an accord and satisfaction is. Anyways, I can tell you that money, this is a UCC again, they call it, in Texas, it's called the Texas Business and Commerce Code. Money means a medium of exchange, we were talking about this earlier. Authorized or adopted by a domestic or foreign government. The term includes a monetary unit of account established by an intergovernmental organization or agreement by two or more countries. A party, again, under the Uniform Commercial Code, means a person that is engaged in a transaction. Sounds like commerce. U.S. Constitution, Article 6. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the constitutional laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. So you can basically, there's all sorts of unconstitutional stuff. That thing that I was mentioning earlier about the 31 U.S.C. 5101, where it talks about Congress hasn't defined what the value of money, of Federal Reserve notes in particular. Okay, well, they're just unconstitutional, is what they are. And that's why he talked about the bankruptcy that happened in 1933.
Just as a matter of curiosity, any law that is unconstitutional on its face, can you ignore that, knowing that, or is it now got to be proven? Because Congress has the right to make any law that it deems fit for the running of the country.
Well,
It's written into their constitution.
you can ignore it, but you might have to prove it. You have to be prepared to prove it. And something like the anything to do with money, I mean, that's the single biggest thing that they get on you is this money. And so it's easy to prove that because only gold or silver coin is constitutional, and anything else is unconstitutional.
I was just curious as to whether you had to go through a lawsuit and get, the courts to decide
No.
in the end.
No, you don't.
No, it's unconstitutional.
No, you just
and
tell
we're
them.
now just proving it under the law. It's
It
unconstitutional.
may not apply to the U.S. citizen, but it
You
applies
tell
to
them.
you as the juror.
You tell them
Oh,
it's
yeah, well, I know that. I'm
unconstitutional.
talking about U.S. citizens. Then.
You just tell them it is.
Yeah.
That's all that has to happen. They know it's unconstitutional, but you have to bring the issue up. They sit there and play stupid,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
They're bar members.
Yep.
They sit there and play stupid. If you don't tell them, then it's presumptions again.
Well, the main reason I asked that, to be honest, is it goes back to this COVID thing where I was advising people who were getting tickets, and I was suggesting that they send them back within the 3 days.
Who was getting tickets for what?
People for not wearing masks.
You mean like in New York City?
Well, actually, it was in New Jersey. But
Okay. Yeah, I would say that would be the case. Yeah.
yeah, well, it's unconstitutional, but people were getting tickets.
Yeah, you reject their offer of
You have
contract.
to rate
Yeah,
exactly.
That's what I would do.
And
Within 3
I
days.
told them
Reject
to
their
do
offer.
that within the 3
Within 3
days.
days.
Right.
But also to write on it specifically that an unconstitutional act or an unconstitutional law has no power in law. And I forget the actual phrase, something that came right out of the top of my head, and I wrote it down several times and I can't remember it. But in essence, that's what it was.
I would.
Telling people not to pay it and to send it back with that particular phraseology.
How about just
You
putting no
could-
contract and sending it back?
No, because the explanation was that it's unconstitutional, and I have no,
Okay.
I have no obligation to pay or to respond to an unconstitutional law.
Right.
In essence,
It's
that's what
actually
I'm saying.
color of law.
Yeah. Well,
And that's what I tell them is that, you're committing a felony. I just tell them you're committing a felony. And Title 18, edicts, governor's executive orders, or any executive orders are not law, they're color of law. And under Title 18, United States Code, Section 242, you're committing a felony. And if you tell me that somebody else is telling you to do it, then that's conspiracy, that's another felony under Title 18 U.S.C. 241.
right.
And, I've never had any trouble at all. Matter of fact, I use it as a teaching opportunity. I got when I was in Texas, I was at a Walmart, and they had a cop there. And the manager of the Walmart went and sent the cop over to talk to me. And the cop comes over, and about then the manager shows up, and he asked me if I had a mask. And I said, that's a felony. You know that. You're a cop. You know that's a felony. It's color of law. And it's a felony to violate my rights under the color of law. And the cop immediately said, well, you're right. He said, but, they have a right to turn away anybody they want. And I wasn't prepared to argue that. And so otherwise, if I was, then I have something for that too.
Yeah.
But the bottom line, so I pulled the mask out, and I looked at the manager and I said, well, that's a felony. And so are you putting him up to this? And no, not me.
Why did you say medical exemption? Because especially Walmart.
Well, I could have, but I didn't feel like it.
Oh.
I'm not gonna.
Right.
Again, there's no medical exemption. I like being in their face anyways. You know what I mean? And the cop, what happened with the cop is after that cop was never around. They never ever. It was Hearst, the city of Hearst, and I'll bet you he went back and talked to his boss, and they decided that they could get implicated in a felony, and they didn't want to have any part of that, and so don't go back to that Walmart. You see what I'm saying?
Sounds like a lot of deadbeats living around there. They got a place in person.
Well, it's actually a pretty nice area, but
Why
Oh,
aren't any
I
of
know
the
that,
store
but-
owners following the executive order when it states on the executive order anyone under 2 or can't medically tolerate a mask does not have to? Why aren't the businesses complying with that? Like, why are they just...
They don't know the law.
Many of them are not told.
Oh, I
They
bring
don't
it
know.
with me. And
Oh,
they're
I know,
like,
I do too. I tell them.
they're so stupid. They're like, I
We
don't
take-
know if that's real. And I'm like, what?
Well, you have
But
to,
that's it. They're
you
not
have to write them
told.
up.
They're
Yeah.
just told everybody must wear a mask. And if you don't wear a mask, then get out of my store.
Yeah.
Even if it's an essential, classed as an essential business. So medical supplies and food. They can't turn you away.
Well,
you can
but
write
more
them
than
up,
that.
though. You can write them
More
up.
than that.
I fight with them all the time,
Yeah.
but I gave up because now I send him.
There's a woman on Long Island, she's written up a lot of these people. Yeah.
More than that, think of it this way. Article 2 of the Constitution, Article 4, Section 2. Let's see if I got it in here.
Do a whole session about 30 minutes on masks.
Yeah.
There's
There's something else going on with that, obviously. It's not just,
Oh,
It's
I'm
a-
sure of it.
you know what I mean, dominating people, and it has to do with your health, because it's actually very unhealthy. It's not protecting people, it's a very specific type of mask. Okay, you're breathing in your carbon dioxide in the air, so you're more likely to get sick and have other issues by wearing that, okay? It doesn't prevent viruses or whatever. We all have viruses, you know. Right.
Yeah, and nobody's reading.
No,
Nobody's
that's
reading
the problem.
harm-
People are
harmful-
watching the boob tube, and they think they're getting all their information from the mainstream media, which is all grafted. And like I said, it's Goebbels, it's Joseph Stalin,
Right here.
Joseph Goebbels.
Article
Free to get
4,
morality here.
Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2. The
Yeah.
Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations. And so then I say to them, is your company subject to regulations? Of course it is. Well then, your other property in the United States. If you commit a felony, it's still a felony. And you can't sit there and say that you can choose to do business with me or not,
No.
because you're United States. You're owned by the
Yeah.
United States. And anyways, that's where I go with it. I just say, under Article 4 of the Constitution, Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the other property of the United States. So are you subject to regulations? Then you're property. And you can't claim that you can choose to do business with.
You'll find the educated people in stores, bigger stores. I don't care if you're going to Costco. They know. They'll tell you exactly. And Walmart acquiesces immediately. You go in there and get.
Well, they do. Matter of fact,
Yeah.
I
They
went
do
to
now.
Well,
Not at the
they
beginning,
do
they
now,
didn't.
yeah.
No, I went to a Walmart here in it's a Black Harbor over here
Yeah.
by Atlantic City. I think it's Black Harbor. Anyways, I went to the Walmart there. This is the nearest one, and they said, "You got a mask?" And I pulled out one out of my pocket. It says, "Yep." I just stuck it back in my pocket and kept on going. Anyways, and I went and got my cart, right? And I was coming back around, and I said to the guy, I said, "You know that's a felony." And he goes, "Huh?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "You're committing a felony right now. Look it up. Title 18, United States Code, Section 242. Have a great day." And I just walked into Walmart and did my shopping, and everybody was wearing masks in there. But after that, there was nobody in the front. After the next time I went to Walmart, there was nobody there saying anything to anybody about masks. Again, what it comes down to is they can presume until you defeat their presumption.
Right.
Once I told them, and this is another thing I tell them, look, small business, I'm not trying to get small businesses into trouble, and in fact, now that I told you, some bureaucrat comes up to you and gets on your case about somebody not wearing a mask, you tell them that I told you, and that'll get you off the hook. And it will.
Right.
Because now that I told him, he can't claim plausible deniability anymore because I told him. And so then the bureaucrat gets on his case. He says, "Well, hey, somebody told me that's a felony." And that bureaucrat knows it's a felony too.
Right.
And so he'll come up with some reason why. Well, we'll forget it this time or something.
Yeah,
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly.
How do you deal with the inspectors that are walking around to businesses right now, demanding to come into your store, flashing their badges, saying they work for the health department and they want to check around?
Did you sign a contract?
Well, you have a license, a business license, and so you're pretty well stuck. Okay, so as a business, I would say, I don't know much about business law. That's really not an area of my expertise, but I would say that you have that business license, and so you probably have to do it. But if they complain about anybody else not wearing a mask, you tell them, hey, I was told that's a felony, and under Title 18 United States Code, Section 242, it is a felony to violate their rights. Now, we have to, as employees, we have to wear masks, but they don't.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. And that's what you tell them, is basically, you know.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's a felony, and under 241, it's conspiracy, and I don't think you want to get mixed up in that, do you?
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying? Because now you're suggesting to him that if he pushes the issue, you're going to get him mixed up in another felony. See what I'm saying?
Exactly.
18 U.S.C. 241 and 242.
That's
Say
that
that
sheet that I
again,
gave you
18.
there.
18 U.S.C. 241. I'll probably have it in one of my presentations here. I'm sure I have it
Okay.
in one of them that we're going to go through. 18
Oh,
U.S.C. 241 and 242.
They're all on that one.
241 is conspiracy to threaten, intimidate, coerce, or injure anyone in the free exercise of their rights, guaranteed by the Constitution. And so, if they are getting on someone's case, walking down the street, that's the free exercise of their rights.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Right.
And so then that's a felony. And that's conspiracy, okay? In other words, you got to show that two people are doing it. So as some employee, and I go into a store, I go into a restaurant. That's why I left Texas, because I got so tired of it. Because I go into a restaurant, and this receptionist would say, well, where's your mask? And I'll say, you know, that's a felony. And this Title 18, I'd explain it to them, and they say, well, my boss just tell me to do it. Well, that's another felony. and they don't care. You know what I mean? And that's why I went to Arizona. I got sick and tired of telling people that and then having them not care. And I was filing, like, if you go online, you can critique the restaurant visit. I was putting nasty visits up there, how they love to commit felonies, and they know they're doing exactly that, and, you know, all that stuff, right? And didn't make any difference. And, you know, that's why I went to Arizona. Because probably half the people there don't even wear masks.
Right.
Can I get in trouble as a business owner if I lock my door and put in a sign on my door that says appointment only? And when they do knock, because I did that, they knocked, and I opened the door and I didn't let them in. And I told them they were harassing a private business.
Well, if it's appointment only, I mean, how can they, I don't see how that could be a problem.
I mean, there were three of them at my door, and I said, you're trying to intimidate me with the three of yous.
Well, and so that could be considered a felony,
Yeah.
Okay.
right?
There's three of
18
them.
U.S.C. 241.
Right.
Threatening you, intimidating you, coercing you in the free exercise of your rights. You can choose who you want to do business with. You're saying that you got to have an appointment only. You see what I'm
So
saying?
I can't get in trouble. Like, they can't come back and, like, you know,
I don't know.
demand that the
You have the
right.
right. It's your business. You have the right. You have the right.
I don't know, but I would suggest that that you maybe put a sign up there saying threatening, coercing, 18 U.S.C. 241, and then 18 I put the statute up there.
Okay.
It's a felony to violate somebody's rights under the color of law. Edicts are color of law. The government's executive orders and the county commissioner's executive orders are a color of law. They're not law,
Right.
because the law is something that's passed by the legislature.
That's right.
See what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I'd put a sign up.
I
Let
will.
them read the sign. And you know,
That'll scare them away.
that ought to get their attention.
That's what the criminal Como has been doing.
Yeah.
Okay, it's color of law, you know. He knows.
Yeah.
He knows. He doesn't wear a mask. His brother doesn't even wear a mask in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Thinks he's a big shot. This big jackass. You know. Yeah. Because Mario, you know, the father. That's why these clowns are in there. And I'll tell you that because this governor, he went to the same high school as my brothers 4 years prior. And
And you have the right. You're are you a corporation or anything like that?
Yes, corporation.
You are a corporation?
Yeah.
Do you advertise that you're a corporation?
No. What do you mean, like advertising, like on my window?
Yeah.
No, it's like my corporation is Southside Salon Corp, but my window says South.
Oh, there you go. So
Yeah.
you're not advertising that you're a
No.
corporation. So you could be self, or you could be this corporation. Could be one or the other.
All right, did that right. Okay.
So then, okay, now, private, somebody doing business from, that's the right to pursue happiness under the Declaration of Independence, okay? The right to pursue happiness is the right to get compensation for labor. That's an inalienable, unlimited right that they cannot deny you. And so that's what you say. I'm exercising my right to pursue happiness here.
Well, that's the problem. They are denying because they're shutting all the businesses down.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, big time, big time. But they're coming in giving her a hard time about she doesn't want to, she can, and so then you're not subject to regulations unless you choose to be. Your corporation might be, but as to you, it's up to you. That's your business. You see what I'm saying?
Like follow what they're asking me to do, like masks.
Exactly.
I mean, I follow everything, but if a client comes in and doesn't want to wear a mask, I don't throw them out. I say, okay, that's your.
Well, again, that comes down to the felony. You can't violate your client's rights. If it was only government employees that could come in and you could prove that it was, or they could prove, it comes down to what they can prove, right? So if they could prove that it was only government employees coming in, then, it's kind of iffy then. But if it's just somebody walking in off the street, there's no way they can say anything about that because that's a felony. That's a felony, and it's a felony to conspire. And so it'd be for them to get on your case is that would be a felony under 241 to threaten you, coerce you, injure you. They're trying to injure you. They want to fine. That's an injury. You see what I'm saying? And coerce you and intimidate you. They're coming in there making all sorts of threats. That's multiple felonies. And so I would nicely remind them about that. Maybe put the sign up, put it up on the wall, or on the door. You don't want to scare your own customers away, but at the same time, they need to know that you're not going to violate somebody's rights. And so tell them that you can't violate their rights. It's a felony for you to violate their rights. And so you're wearing a mask. That's your requirement.
I'm wearing a shield.
Or whatever.
I have to because the clients were writing bad reviews because I wasn't wearing a mask. So I'm trying to protect my staff.
Sure. And they're idiots.
I tried.
At any rate, yeah, that's right.
Right.
But the bottom line is you cannot, because that's a felony against you. And if they coerce you into doing that, then that's conspiracy, and you're going to, you see what I'm saying?
Right, so I don't have to wear one because it's a felony for them telling me as a business.
No, you would still have to wear one, but you can't coerce your clients to wear one. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
You cannot say to them anything.
Well, I lost 3 employees because I exercised the medical freedom that people have, the HIPAA law, and if they have a medical exemption, they're not able to wear a mask. 3 people quit because I said I was going to be strict with that, with clients coming in that didn't want to wear a mask. So 3 people quit. Yeah.
So that sounds like good employees to have. You ought to call them back.
Yeah. I'm glad they left, but they don't know about the HIPAA law. They don't know that, people can have a medical exemption. They didn't understand what I was saying. So it's like if it's not mentioned on the TV or the news, it's not real.
Right.
Actually, the HIPAA law doesn't apply in the private business. It only applies in medical records and medical staff giving out the information within the medical records. Now, the ADA is probably something else that would certainly...
The ADA applies everywhere.
Yeah. So that would definitely apply, which again is
Yeah,
part of that. Because that's part of that
So the
ADA.
HIPAA law
I had
is
2
not-
situations. Let me ask you this. I had a situation, this was like 5 months ago when it first started happening. I was in Lowe's, didn't go back there since. And this guy, and I didn't wear a mask, everyone's got masks on, right? This guy's following me, and then he stops me. I was just in a short distance, right? Where's your mask? I said, I don't wear a mask, I'm medical good. No. And then he goes, private property.
That's a felony.
That's a felony right there, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, what do you mean private property?
Well, first of all, is it a corporation?
Yeah?
So then, are they subject to regulations? Of
Yes.
course they are.
Yes.
And so it's not private property.
Okay, that's what yeah, exactly.
And number one. Number two, they're threatening you under color of law.
Right.
Okay, that's a felony too, 241. If there's
Okay,
more
right.
than one of them, you'd have to show there's more than one.
Right.
Okay, that's conspiracy to
Right.
threaten, coerce, injure, intimidate anyone in the free exercise of their rights.
Exactly.
And then you got to use the words in their statutes. Okay. So if there's more than one of them, then that's another felony, 241, 18 U.S.C. 241. And then violating your rights or subjecting you, it's what the words are, is subjecting you to the deprivation of your rights, to your rights, privileges, or immunities guaranteed under the Constitution. And so, or laws of the United States. And so, if they're forcing you to wear a mask, it's your right not to wear it.
Right.
Because that's color of law. They can't, the color of law means nothing.
And then what do they say? They had another place, believe it or not, it was Salvation Army. I can't believe this. and they said, oh, my boss called. He said, you know, you got to have a mask on. And I said, no, it's a medical. I used medical conditions at that point, but I didn't know what I know now. Bottom line is, and they said, well, look, if you don't leave the store, we're going to call the police, type of thing.
Trespassing.
They did that to me.
Right.
So then that's where, are you subject to regulations? Because if you're subject to regulations, then you're property of the United States under U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2.
Okay.
And so if they're going to call the cops, I'd leave. But, because it's trespassing, or they're going to claim it's trespassing. And the cops are, you know, but
They enforce the trespassing. They don't enforce the mask because they don't have the power. But
So-
they can do a criminal trespassing.
Trespassing, and for what? How can they say you're trespassing if it's open to the public? It's,
They can, if it's a business, they can declare that they don't want you in the store for whatever reason.
well, it's
It becomes
actually
discrimination, but
yeah.
not these big corporations like Salvation Army cannot do that because again they're other property of the United States. But
Yeah.
you got to pick your battles.
I know.
Do you want to fight with them over that and let the cops arrest you and take you down and put you in jail and then have to go and fight that battle?
Yeah, I know.
I would just as soon just put the mask on
Yeah.
and just kind of, you got to pick your battles. There's too
Yeah.
many, you know. There's too many idiots out there.
I know, it's the thing.
What if you say it's against your religion?
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, I noticed
That's good.
I noticed an Irishman in the store. The only one in there besides me, and they didn't give him a hard time at all.
They can't discriminate that, right?
All he had was his hat on, his corn hat, and his, and his beard without the without a mustache. So he was Amish, right? I mean, he was Amish. So
yeah. I wanted to just bring out on there. I thought there was extra, but I just pulled
What
this
is it
out
you
again
had
that I've been using. But there's 18 U.S.C. 245, which is also included. And I've got it on here, plus Title 42, 1983, which is
Right.
also on here.
Right.
They're all very similar to the 242 and 241.
Right.
what is that, Carl? You have there?
It's a form that I've actually been giving out to
Okay.
people.
Did you get
that-
that on Peggy Hall? Have you seen her?
I've seen Peggy Hall stuff now. I mean, no, I was the one that was giving that information out at the very beginning.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, this is
Jennifer
You see this?
Hall Goodwin. There's another
You see
one
this one?
she's doing.
Jennifer.
Hall Goodwin. She's another one that's doing.
Oh, Jennifer's Hall's doing this,
Yeah, well, that sheet.
right?
She took the sheet that I gave.
Right.
And she's had it redesigned, and that
Oh,
was
really?
the one she
Okay, 'cause
created.
All right, because you gotta.
But I've included all that. All that stuff was the stuff, the
So where is
information
it?
I gave them in the beginning.
This on you have a website for this, or?
It was on her Facebook page, but some of the original Facebook pages have been shut down now. Facebook have closed her pages down.
But is it on her website? She has a website, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does. Yeah, I think there's a link for that particular
Okay.
document. But again, as I say, I was giving this stuff out from within the first month, telling
Okay.
people to start giving these, especially to the cops, because all this stemmed from the Tillis gym.
Well,
So
she
I
was-
was firing all sorts of stuff down there to help
Right.
them out.
She was taking stuff over Anna von Reitz or whatever, putting it on her.
Anna von Reitz
Right.
information is stuff that she's promoting
Yeah.
a lot of at the moment. But
Right.
she's new to the game.
She's new, I
newly
know.
awakened, so.
Right, right.
I've
Exactly.
been doing it for 20 years. Anna's old hat.
Right.
Okay, so anyways, this is the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, 48 Stat 337, as used in this act. The term United States means government of the United States. The term currency of the United States means currency which is legal tender in the United States and includes Federal Reserve notes and United States notes. So that's talking basically about District of Columbia. That's where they're District of Columbia and the territories. And so then if you're in the state of New Jersey, you're in a territory. If you're in New Jersey State, then you're in a state. You see what I'm saying? So my Trump book is available now. This is about the deep state, who they are, how they got there, where they came from. What truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. At the center of this movement is a crucial conviction that a nation exists to serve its citizens. And for too long, a small group of nations in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government at the cost of its citizens. Washington flourished, but the insiders refused to share in its wealth. I have trouble reading this. Politicians prospered, but allowed jobs to leave and our factories to close. Not anymore. And that's Trump in his 2016 inaugural address. See, that's on the back of my book, and I didn't even write any of that, actually. That was stuff that the publisher wrote. But I think it's pretty good. It says, in Trump, a true American patriot or not, Glenn Fern and Mike Blackwell reveal the depths of corruption, deceit, and manipulation infesting our political system for hundreds of years, regardless of political affiliation. Read the hard evidence that exposes how our elected officials sold Americans into slavery. Understand the Founding Fathers' true intent when they formed our Republican form of government. Discover the influence of the Satanic Roman cult on our politicians and political system. Does Donald Trump want to transfer power back to we the people? In Trump, you will see the great battle that is upon us. And that's true. Anyways, you can order the book from Amazon or from my website. If you prefer, I prefer you order the book by website, and you'll get it autographed from my website, or you can order it here. But you can get it from Amazon too. Amazon does not provide autographed books. If you want the book autographed, order the book from my website, but don't forget to let me know what you want the autograph to say. You want to know the origins of the deep state and who's behind it. You want to know why it's called the Trump administration. There's a reason for it. You want to know what an administration is. It's an ecclesiastical office. You want to know how Trump came to be president. You ever heard of Jerome Corsi? There's a YouTube video. Do you guys know Jerome Corsi? He's got his YouTube channel. He's got a doctorate from Harvard of political science. He's written a bunch of books. He knows Roger Stone and indirectly Trump. Anyways, there's a YouTube video where Jerome Corsi says that in 2015, 5 generals came to see him, and they said they were going to overthrow Obama. And he said, well, you can do that if you want, but maybe you ought to go talk to Donald Trump first. And 3 months later, he gets a phone call, and they decided not to overthrow Obama because Donald Trump had agreed to run for president. So, anyways, you want to know who owns Congress? Congress is owned. For sure they are. You want to know why they're called law enforcement officers? You want to know how you have become a slave? You want to know what the root cause of the War of Independence was? It's in the book. You want to know why every president goes to visit the Pope on their first international trip? Have you noticed that?
Yep.
He does. Goes to visit the president on his first, or the Pope, I should say, on their first international trip. In reality, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way.
Visit the Queen too.
Oh yeah.
Not on his first international
No,
trip, though.
but they do visit the Queen.
They do, yeah. Matter of fact, the Queen came here during the George Bush Jr. administration. I don't know if you remember that, but she was wearing her crown, and so that was an official, as the Queen, visit. And, you know, when she goes to Canada, she wears a blue hat. You know, it's some hat, but it's not the crown.
Yeah.
But she goes to, when she went to visit George Bush, she wore a crown.
Yeah, but when Trump was in England, he was walking in front of her. She was in back. And people were saying that was disrespectful, but it was basically showing what? That
Who the boss is.
who the boss is, right. She's no longer, right. In fact, he's involved in some other stuff.
I think that, yeah, I'm not sure what happened,
Yeah.
but obviously if that was the case, something changed.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
What's the crown mean? Like when she wears the crown on the blue hat?
Well, the crown, first of all, is a physical crown. But the crown is also a corporation. In Canada, all the public land is owned by the crown. Any lawsuit is the crown versus, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's always talking about the crown. And in fact, the crown is the Roman cult, is what it is.
Yeah.
It's what happened if you, and it goes into it in my book. The Magna Carta, you ever heard of the Magna Carta?
Oh, yeah.
The Magna Carta, well,
King John.
Magna Carta was signed in 1215. And I go into it in my book. That's the oldest record that I have of the Roman cult being involved in things, is 1213, where King John signed a treaty called Concessions to the Pope. You look it up online, where he agreed to pay tribute to the Pope. And 2 years later, the Magna Carta came about. The Welsh barons rose up in rebellion, and there's a court case that talks about it. They stuck a sword to King John's throat and they said, "Here, King, we want you to sign this." And that was the Magna Carta.
That's right.
That's essentially what they did. It's in my book.
Problem is, he signed it under duress and coercion, so
Well,
is it a legal document?
Actually, under the under the law of war, they can do that. Under the law of war, there's a court case talks about it, because it says it's not a treaty, it's not an act, but it acts like a treaty, because under the law of war, when you force someone to sign something, then it's just as binding as a treaty. When it's under the law of war, okay, international law, that's what they did. And that's essentially what the cops do when they assault you on the street. So they're under the law of war. If you cave in, then you agree to it. See what I'm saying?
You just got to act within two.
That's why you have to go after their oath.
Right.
It's the oath is their, and that's what Nelson's doing, and it's brilliant how he's dug up all this stuff. Anyways. This is Article 4, Section 2. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. Remember, we talked about how any corporation, if it's subject to regulations, it's property of the United States. And this is similar in Canada. Section 2 of the Canadian Ownership and Control Determination Act. Owned means subject to the regulations. And then in Section 3 of the Government Corporation Operation Act of Canada, every corporation, for all its purposes, is an agent of Her Majesty and right of Canada. So again, all corporations are agencies. That's why they collect taxes for the government. They're operating as an agent. Martial law is the public law of necessity. Necessity calls it forth. Necessity justifies its exercise. Necessity measures the extent and degree to which it may be employed. That necessity is no formal, artificial, legalistic concept, but an actual and factual one. It is the necessity of taking action to safeguard the state against insurrection, riot, disorder, or public calamity. What constitutes necessity is a question of fact in each case. And that's a practical law, martial law, practical manual of martial law, as is cited in Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. Necessity is the plea of for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. So it's tyrants make that argument, oh, I have to do this. And the slaves sit there, oh, yeah, you have to do it. Enslave us. We'll be slaves. You see what I'm saying? And that's William Pitt, 1873.
It changed it slightly now because it's for our benefit and to protect us, but amounts to the same thing. It's necessary to do it.
Yeah. And it's still the creed of slaves.
Mm-hmm.
The action of Congress in the passage of the first Legal Tender Act was placed distinctly upon the ground of the existing imperative need of government, and the Legal Tender Clause was urged and adopted as a war measure, martial law, Juilliard versus Greenman. No state shall coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold or silver coin, a tender and a payment of debt, U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, and there's no lawful money in general circulation. Remember, we were talking about that this morning. Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen, where private, corporate, commercial paper and securities is concerned. For purposes of suits, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. So by using Federal Reserve notes without noting your objection to them somehow, you just turned yourself into a slave. Governments lose their immunity and descend to the level of private corporations when involved in commercial activity, enforcing negotiable instruments as in fines, penalties, assessments, bails, taxes, and the remedy lies in the hand of the state, its municipalities seeking remedy. That's the power of that letter, that motion that guy sends in Texas. You see what I'm saying? I mean, he brings up some major issues that are just fatal to the proceeding that's going on.
This is the one that you transcribed from the...
It's the one I emailed you this morning.
Right.
Yeah.
Congress, claiming its martial law power to declare war, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions, imposed martial law in the United States and never discontinued it. The result was an extension of military municipal jurisdiction of Congress. Well, where's the evidence of this? Look at the 13th Amendment, the Civil Rights Act, the legal tender laws, the 14th Amendment, etc., etc., etc. And that's taken from a book called The Non-Ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. And this is another cite from the same book. The 14th Amendment is an extension of national military powers presently used in a municipal character and enforced by municipal laws stretch far beyond their original limitations and enforced by Article 1 tribunals. Okay, so national municipal powers, in other words, in the territory of New Jersey, not in the state of New Jersey, in the territory of New York, I should say in the state of New Jersey, not in New Jersey state. The state of New Jersey is a territory. In the state of New York, not in New York state.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Or the city of New York. The city of New York is a municipal corporation. New York City is the land there with the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in how you use your words.
Right. And if you don't think it's important, how do you have attorneys have their jobs, the so-called profession?
No joke.
Yeah.
Statutes have been passed extending the courts of admiralty and vice admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and estimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law, and instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial. For altering fundamentally our form of government established by charter, we saw the misery to which such despotism would reduce us. Despotism, military dictatorship. And that's taken from the Causes and Necessities for Taking Up Arms, 1775. The more they change, the more they stay the same. The refusal of King George III to allow colonies to operate an honest money system which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of money manipulators was probably the prime cause of the revolution. And Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution, the United States shall guarantee to every state of this union a republican form of government. Republican. Huh?
I mentioned about Tennessee Republic
Yeah,
when I did that addressing.
right. But you said it also right, Tennessee Republic, not Republic of Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yes.
But in considering the question before us, it must be borne in mind that there is no law of nations standing between the people of the United States and their government, and interfering with their relation to each other. The powers of the government and the rights of the citizens under it are positive practical regulations plainly written down. The people of the United States have delegated to it certain enumerated powers and forbidden it to exercise others. And that's Dred Scott versus Sanford. The purpose of a republican form of government is to shield we the people from international law. Copies of these documents can be found on my website and linked under my recent videos. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information, shares a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forums. Contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs, the military script, the fake money, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders. Send me for an email for particulars. And you know, another thing you could do is you could put up a big sign saying, we prefer gold or silver coin, but we can accept the fake money, the Federal Reserve notes, or whatever you want to call it. Eh? But again, that takes you out of the matrix, okay? That takes you out of their system, because you're not taking it as a privilege anymore. See what I'm saying? You're taking it because you have to. Anyways, it's up to you how much you want to push it, eh?
You still have to deal with the banks, and
You do.
that's the next step. So that's why I have my little stamp when I'm dealing with banks.
That's true. You can put, like on when you deposit the check, you put on the back for deposit, for credit on account, or in exchange for non-redeemable Federal Reserve notes at face value. And that's, again, you're objecting to the fake money. See what I'm saying?
Makes it a non-taxable event.
Right.
What about credit card transactions? Again,
Well, the way you would deal with those in forms of payment is when you're issuing an invoice. You write it on the invoice, exactly as Glenn's described.
Yeah.
Wanting silver or gold.
That's why.
Or you're acknowledging that the services you provided are provided in exchange for non-redeemable Federal Reserve notes at face value.
That's why you put a sign on the wall, because that kind of covers it all. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you put a sign on the wall, you can make it big, or I'd make it big, but it depends on how in your face you want to be. But we prefer gold or silver coin pursuant to Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 of the U.S. Constitution, but we can accept the fake money, the Federal Reserve notes, you know. And I would call it military script, because that's a matter of educating people. But again, that's me. I'm not saying you got to pick your battles of what you want to do. You don't want to scare people away. You might find that a lot of people come there because they like the sign too. You never know.
Do you have to pay sales tax too?
yeah.
Yeah, that's another one. I had people drafted a letter to, this was in Canada, but in essence what it was to send a letter saying that it come to my attention, for obvious reasons, that I'm not getting a direct payment for claiming or for collecting the sales tax. And I understand you have employees paid in whatever $60,000, $70,000 a year. So it boils down to what I've said is that if you agree to pay me $40,000 or $50,000 for the administration and collection of your sales taxes, I will continue to collect it on your behalf and forward it to you. And usually, one person I know that did it, they got a letter back saying, never mind, don't bother collecting sales tax for us anymore.
Really? So run that by me once more.
That happened in Canada. It was conditional acceptance.
Conditional
type letter.
acceptance for sales
For
tax?
sales taxes, yeah. Now, it's difficult to some extent because you've got the business licensing and
Right.
the registration and all
Right.
that stuff. So when
Right.
you do that, you make an agreement. But this guy he said, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to send the provincial sales tax office this letter stating what I know to be true, that you have employees who are paid a considerable sum of money to collect this sales tax, yet you're asking me to collect it for you without recompense. So the administration and collection of this sales tax is costing me time and money. So in future, if you agree to pay me $40,000 or whatever figure you want, I will agree to continue to collect and administrate the sales tax and forward it to you. So it was
Right. Yeah,
it
that's
was
great.
basically
That's great.
a letter to say, yeah, I'm not doing this for free anymore.
Well,
And what do you think?
exactly. Again, that's slavery.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
and so all the questions I wanted to ask you with the business, it's, how to
Right.
do all that stuff.
Right.
But,
Right.
I mean, you might not get anywhere, or you might give yourself a whole headache. Again, it's all about having the knowledge and choosing the battles and what
Right.
they actually say.
Right.
They probably won't do something quite as obvious as, well, you registered the business and you have a license, so you are obliged or obligated to collect these taxes on our behalf.
I thought if you are like a studio and you're not open to the public and you are by appointment, do you need a business license?
You don't need a business license for anything.
Yeah, you don't.
I
If
thought
you-
the business license was that I can have a storefront and people can come in. It's a business where people
You could,
walk off the street.
what you could do, theoretically, is if you owned the property,
I own one property with my salon.
okay, you own it,
One of them and the other one I rent, but that's kind
Okay.
of on the...
okay. Well, if you, certainly on the property you own,
Well, I have a mortgage. You said I don't own it.
okay, well, you don't own it then.
Okay.
But it's hard to, with prices nowadays, the bankster thieves have driven up prices through their free and easy mortgages and that kind of stuff. You see what I'm saying?
Well, a few years ago, we had owner finance, and we didn't know all about this stuff. We just kind of woke up recently in which we were learning, but our mortgage was owner finance, and then we refinanced because we needed money to fix the property, and that's where, that day when we went to closing, they threw all these papers in front of us, this big
Right.
book, and we took
Right.
the train ride home, and we weren't happy about the money that we just received. We felt like we just got beat up and abused, and I was just like,
Yeah.
what just happened?
Yeah, no
it was
joke.
like- it was so when you said that earlier, I know what that feeling was because we went through it, and I was like, this is not. I mean, we got a chunk of money, but it wasn't a happy day.
Yeah.
It was like, what do we do?
Well, they got 9/10 and you got 1/10 basically.
Yeah.
On your signature that they monetized, because the money didn't exist before then.
Yeah, I
Right.
didn't know all that.
Well, I understand. So
Yeah.
the bank should be giving you, I have to laugh, they used to give these little trinkets, years ago. Now, what do they give you, some free pens, the cheap pens or something like that? I mean, they should be sending, no, I'm telling you,
I
I
don't
told
think
them,
we got anything.
I don't know. They should be. If people have, and they don't even know what they make on these monies, and they use the derivatives and do other things that you wouldn't be. You'd be amazed when you see how. It's not a coincidence they have the biggest buildings in town. Thanks. No coincidences there. So, but yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you live and learn. Let's face it, it's one step at a time. We're all products of the government's educational system, and they haven't done anything to. They taught us what we need to know to operate in their system, but they haven't taught us everything.
Yeah.
Anyways. So two national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument. That's in Downs versus Bidwell, U.S. Supreme Court, 1901. And then if you look here in the Articles of Confederation, we already talked about this earlier, the style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America, the Articles of Confederation, and yet if you look in your U.S. passport, it is just United States of America. That's also what you'll see on Air Force One. You'll see it on Silver Eagles that I got in my wallet here. You'll see it in a lot of places. And You'll see it anywhere, in my opinion. See it on a Silver Eagle. Anyways, you'll see it anywhere where there's really no constitutional authorization to do anything. And so that's when you'll see United States of America. Like, for example, there's nothing in the Constitution that says you can build an Air Force One for the president. See what I'm saying? That's all executive. And so all of the executive stuff that Trump does or any president does is all found under the corporation that's set up in 1871. Passport. Passport is a written document given to a person or persons by a commander of belligerent forces authorizing him or them to travel unmolested within the district occupied by his troops. Did you know that?
I did.
A lot of people don't. Passports are issued by the State Department or similar office in other countries to diplomatic agents and others entering or traveling in foreign countries, which are the same general character as those issued during war. The latter should, when practicable, have the photograph of the bearer attached. And that's taken from the Rules of Land Warfare, 1914 edition, Passport, Safe Conduct, Safeguards, and Cartels, Chapter 7, Section 4, Article 276, page 100.
It's another one of those relatively recent requirements. Passports weren't required until probably mid-1850s. Before that, they didn't exist.
Well, and actually, it's only like when they started the War on Terror in the early 2000s that they started making passports mandatory for traveling internationally. A lot of times you didn't need, there's a lot of places where you didn't need it, like to go to Canada, you didn't need a passport. And now they're saying you got to have one. This is a Federal Reserve note that we talked about. Whoops. Okay. There we go. There we go. See, the United States of America on that Federal Reserve note.
So certificate.
Yeah. Is still a negotiable instrument. Still, even though it's a promissory note, it still falls under negotiable instrument law, which is a subset of Roman law. At common law, on a gold or silver coin are tender, legal tender. And it's citing a court case in 1820, but that is citing that's citing Book 2 of the Institutes and the Laws of England, which is Coke in the 1500s. There is a distinction between a debt discharged and one paid. When discharged, the debt still exists, though divested of its character as a legal obligation during the operation of the discharge. So again, when you use Federal Reserve notes, you don't pay a debt. You're discharging the debt with limited liability. So anytime, again, with the, this is all related to without prejudice, because that's what we're talking about here, but anytime, these are all things that you can be doing, that if you have to sign anything, then you sign without prejudice, right? Check out my other videos, Banks or Thieves playlist, Roman Cult playlist, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar members 1 through 7, Do-It-Yourself How Not to Volunteer for the Selective Service in the Draft, Martial Laws Here, Do-It-Yourself No Income Tax, Do-It-Yourself Free Mail 1 and 2, Do-It-Yourself Kangaroo Courts 1 through 19, Canada Border Pigs playlist, Bar members and their Satanic Connections playlist. And this is Article 37 of the Libra Code. This rule does not interfere with the right of the victorious invader to tax the people or their property, to levy forced loans, to billet soldiers, or to appropriate property, especially houses, lands, boats, or ships, and churches for temporary or military uses, Article 37 of the Labor Code.
Does Article 3 not quash that bit about billeting soldiers?
What about it?
Article 3 of the Constitution, is that the article that refers to soldiers taking over property, private property, and billeting their soldiers?
There was an article, I think, because the Crown was forcing the colonists to billet soldiers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think there was an article in the Constitution that said that there's not going to be any of that going on.
Yeah.
Right.
But I
I
can't
just wonder
remember.
whether that was the same
Yes.
thing, because it's
That's
the
a
Labor
legal-
Code, but those
Yeah.
two are in conflict with each other. The Labor Code says they can do it, but the Constitution says no way.
Yeah, well, and the Labor Code, you have to understand, the Labor Code is international law, and so the Constitution wouldn't really apply to anything with the Labor Code. Now, the Labor Code is, it's international law, and it's equivalent to a regulation. So it's not an act of Congress. Congress doesn't pass it. So it's really not a law at all. It's color of law. And so, but they got the guns. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so again, you know, you have to pick your battles. And but you got to also understand the nature of what's going on. And that's why it's in there. Cryptocurrency, a lot of this stuff is in there just to understand the nature of what's going on, because again, because they have the guns. And but there's always a way. You know, they got the gun. They can be sticking the gun to your head and tell you to sign something. You just put without prejudice. See what I'm saying? And so then you're saying that you have nothing. You know. Anyways, cryptocurrency is not a forced loan. Anything can be used as a medium of exchange as long as we agree to it. It's called barter. My blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page is deleted due to censorship on the part of Facebook. My private group at Facebook called Sovereignty International is being deleted. I haven't been there in months. Facebook is a has-been. My Yahoo private group called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants is going to get deleted next month. And my Google private group is called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. And I've also got a MeWe group. That's down here on the bottom, and I've got a library channel. I'm putting everything on the library channel these days. And so that's where I would suggest you go. And everything on my YouTube channel is also on the library. And now I'm uploading, like, the videos from last weekend, all went up to library. So you can get all of that stuff at library for free. And then I got a Patreon channel. And the stuff on this weekend, most of it's probably going to go up in my exclusive videos. Some of it will go up in my exclusive videos for sure. Some of it might go up on library. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But some of it's going to go up on my exclusive videos for sure. That is actually a separate website that's actually in Europe. And so far I haven't had any trouble with them at all. And I don't think I'm going to have too much trouble. The Europeans are actually, you know, compared to the Facebook pukes and the Google pukes, Europeans are no problem at all. Anyways, sad will be the day when the American people forget their traditions. Gee, that sounds like what's going on right now. And their history, and no longer remember that the country they love, the institutions they cherish, and the freedom they hope to preserve were born from the throes of an armed resistance to tyranny, nursed in the rugged arms of fearless men. Well said. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations. We already saw this. So law of nations is international law. The banks all operate under international law. Military despotism is under international law. Uniform Commercial Code is international law. Actually, all codes, rules, and regulations fall under international law, because remember, it's the state of New Jersey. The state of New Jersey is territorial, okay, and so that's international law. The the de jure New Jersey state is we the people, and actually New Jersey state doesn't have any statutes or codes, right? It's we the people. And so we the people need to start convening our own common law juries and jural assemblies, and that's what we're going to be talking about a protected person under international law, because it's a different kind of international law. Forced loans is probably the single most important thing for a military despotism. It makes it so the courts presume that you do not pay a debt. It makes everybody into paupers, and paupers have no rights except what they allow you to have. Gold is the money of kings, silver is the money of gentlemen, barter is the money of peasants, and debt is the money of slaves. The Federal Reserve was set up under the insurance laws of the United States. Federal Reserve notes are worthless insurance script. Anything purchased with worthless insurance script is the property of the issuer of the script. Taxes are the fee for using the private money system. The single most important requirement for a Republican form of government is lawful money. Lawful money is not Federal Reserve notes. Lawful money is not bank notes. Lawful money is not forced loans. Lawful money is not discharged debts. Lawful money is not international law. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. Therefore, non-resistance to tyrants is obedience to Satan. And that's Sons of Liberty, and I agree with that 100%.
Yep.
Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video. YouTube, don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. On Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. There's the front page of my YouTube channel. The subscribe button's already clicked. That's why it's not red. The bell is not clicked. It would look like it's vibrating. Arrows point at the bell. What is called proclaiming martial law is no law at all, but merely for the sake of public safety in circumstance of great emergency, setting aside all law and acting under military power. And that's Attorney General's opinion, February 3rd, 1857. That's why they have to pass statutes for common law offenses. That's why they have to, all statutes are edicts under martial law. We can't even begin to count the number of times judges, lawyers, and statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by statutes. They'd be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore. It's been replaced by martial law. Well, there isn't any common law anymore in the state of New Jersey, but there is in New Jersey State. So the question is which one are you in? Which one can they presume you're in? And so if you can change their presumption to where they're not looking for you to sign for stuff, you don't have to worry about the without prejudice. You see what I'm saying? That without prejudice is only when you're in the new state of New Jersey and they're forcing you to sign something. Well, then you bring out that without prejudice. If you're in New Jersey State and they know you're in New Jersey State, they can't see you. They'll never see you. They'll never bother you. They'll leave you alone. They'll see you, and they'll turn and run the other direction if it's done properly. That's assuming that Trump stays in power. If the Democrats stay in power, then who knows what's going to happen. I'll bet you that it'll be a total tyranny. It'll be back to the Founding Fathers again, probably. There are no common law offenses against the United States, only those acts which Congress has forbidden with penalties for disobedience of its command or crimes. And same thing in Texas or every other state. Under Texas law, no act or omission is a crime unless made so by statute. That means that that's the state of Texas. That's not Texas State or Texas Republic, either one. Under a military dictatorship, there is no law, which is why they're required to pass statutes, which are edicts for common law crimes like murder and assault. This creates civil law, which creates a democracy. Under a military dictatorship, you have a democracy, and a democracy is international law. I have exclusive content available on my website and on Patreon. My website has 2 subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. The basic subscription level is $29.99 a year for the videos only, and $49.99 a year for the videos plus unlimited consultations. I'm not a liar. Well, I meant an attorney. No, I meant a liar. But I can tell you what I would do under certain circumstances and where to find the forms. The only power that these New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception. My agenda is to expose it for all our benefit, but I cannot fight all the battles. We need other people being on point and knowing what's going on and fighting their own battles. And what will happen is ultimately there'll be so many people that it'll force the government back into their proper jurisdiction. Some of the content is available is Arlington Private Information Share, which is 9 videos. Land deed training, I think that's 2 or 3 videos. Estoppel certificates training, foreclosure estoppel certificates training, corporate denial training, toll roads notice and demand training, invoice training, notice of void judgment training, revocation of signature training, third-party witness training, federal habeas corpus training, revocation of voter registration training, criminal complaint training, there's about 3 of those. Lawsuit training, there's 1, and there's going to be more. Any other training requests, if it's something that I haven't done already, I'm open to ideas. And also the Northeast Private Information Share videos. Videos from this one, previous events, and there'll be videos, you know, parts of this one will probably be up there too.
This is mostly on Patreon then, or is it?
It'll be on my website.
Okay.
And well, the Patreon, the problem with Patreon is I have to upload it to YouTube because not a lot of places can you upload it and still have it work on Patreon. I mean, I've uploaded it to all sorts of places like Brady-on, Mike Adams. It won't work on Patreon. You won't be able to watch the video. Some reason, I don't know why. Anyways, so the problem with YouTube is I can't upload anything to YouTube right now because they locked me out of my account. Now, hopefully that doesn't last for too long, but we'll see. So, if once I get access to my YouTube channel again, then it'll be on Patreon, but it'll certainly be on my exclusive videos on my website. All forms, files, and other instructions are available for free. Link to my videos and on my website. All exclusive content will be available on my website, and you can buy a subscription there. And there's the Patreon link. And if you want to buy a subscription as a donation, it's a modest subscription. There's no doubt about it. But a whole bunch of people chipping in a little bit adds up pretty fast, and it's all appreciated. We've been telling people for decades, or they have been telling people for decades that we are in a democracy. Do you think that's an accident? And I'm sick of YouTube and Google censorship. Over the next few months, I'll be moving away from Google and YouTube. I've already dumped Chrome and I got Brave. And I'm moving my videos over to Library, and actually all my videos are over on Library now, and there's some on Library that aren't on YouTube. And so there's my book about Trump again. And Trump, A True American Patriot or Not, I just published my book. It's available on Amazon and on my website. Amazon does not provide autographed books. I do provide autographed books from my website. My website goes to PayPal, and if you want to pay by another method, contact me privately. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com, and my website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. You want to know the origins of the deep state, who's behind it? You want to know why it's called the Trump administration? Do you want to know what an administration is? Do you want to know how Trump came to be president? You want to know who owns Congress? Congress is definitely owned and operated. That's why Pelosi gets up there and says, we can't read this bill until after we pass it. You want to know why they're called law enforcement officers? Because what they're doing is they're enforcing the martial law. That's exactly what they're doing. Do you want to know how you have become a slave? Do you want to know what the root cause was of the War of Independence? It's a bankruptcy. Same thing as what's going on today. You want to know why every president goes to visit the Pope on their first international trip? They're going to see the owner. In reality, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way. Thank you, Donald Trump. Whereas this is 2 years after the Declaration of Independence. 1778, George III, Chapter 12, 1778. Whereas taxation by the Parliament of Great Britain for the purpose of raising a revenue in His Majesty's colonies, provinces, and plantations in North America have been found by experience to occasion great uneasiness and disorders, that from and after the passing of this act, the King and Parliament of Great Britain will not impose any duty, tax, assessment, whatever, payable at any of the colonies, provinces, or plantations in North America, except for such duties as may be expedient to impose for the regulation of commerce. So, it has been found by great experience to occasion a great uneasiness and disorders. Well, no joke, Batman.
Now, the expedients to impose for the regulation of commerce, federal government, or governments themselves, are in business basically for the regulation of commerce.
That's right.
That's their whole purpose.
That's right.
So that's why we're getting stung and drained by everything they can possibly think of.
That's right. Well, but it really comes down to people wanting the government to do things that governments are not meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, really, at the end of the day. Government's not meant to be giving welfare out to people.
No.
So when they do that kind of stuff, then they have to get money somehow to pay for it. Taxes cause the War of Independence. If they can tax you, then you are their slave. Think about it. You're forced to work for the government for nothing. It's become more and more difficult to be free. All subjects over which the sovereign power of the estate extends are objects of taxation, and those over which it does not extend are exempt from taxation. This proposition may also be pronounced as self-evident. It's obvious. The sovereignty of the state extends to everything which exists by its authority or its permission. That's U.S. Supreme Court, McCullough versus Maryland. Let's go back to that definitive treaty of peace. Right here. This is the definitive treaty of peace. We were looking at it earlier.
You have to swap screens.
Huh?
I have to swap screens.
Okay. I'm not sure how to do that. Oh, I know. Well, let's see. Is that going to work? There, I have one project. Still not seeing it. Okay.
I always wondered those when younger, so why are they people paying money's out for quote income taxes? What did these people do to help me build my business? Or I don't get it. Something doesn't sound fishy here. What's this all about? No one really, well, let's just pay, So, it gut feeling something wasn't right way back. So,
Yeah, if you're smart enough, wily enough, you figure there's something not right, and then you do the research to find out what it is, or don't.
yeah. Well, then I come across some people that were, well, we pay taxes, but as little as possible. So in other words, they've got every kind of writer you can imagine. I remember, meeting a guy from New Jersey actually, and insurance, and he paid, but very little because he had whatever he did. Now I know all the things that can be done with the wealthy people, great trust, another trust, another trust, and they found foundation. By the end, they don't pay anything at all, and with the little they pay, they had to make a donation eventually. That can go to something that they have word in, or part in it, basically. You know what I mean? So it's like not really giving anything away at all. That's why it happened with Zuckerberg. When he gave all his money to his foundation, no, he controlled it all.
Okay, I'm showing you this here.
No.
So,
Oh yeah, pieces.
George III, King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland. Well, France, there's another treaty where the United States agreed to pay France back 18 million livres that used to finance the War of Independence. So King George financed both sides of the War of Independence.
What do you think? He thinks he's a Rothschild or something?
Think about it. No, well, more than that, think about this.
Right.
Get a load of this. He's arch treasurer and Prince Elector of the Holy Roman Empire.
Ah. Here we go
So,
again.
so he did it. They don't mention that kind of stuff unless it's relevant to the treaty, right? So it's because he used Holy Roman Empire money.
Oh, I
He
should
did
be like
it-
an archbishop.
Did it for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
I know.
And he's Arch-Treasurer and Prince Elector of United States of
Ooh.
America.
Whoa.
Well, it says the United States.
Doesn't say the.
The instead.
It says the.
The D is not capital. The D is not capitalized,
Right,
so
yeah.
it's just United States of
In
America.
other words, it's a, right. You have to know your grounds.
Yeah, it's about
Technically, yeah.